Welcome to today's webinar. Thank you so much again for joining me. So today's webinar, I'm hoping to give you some of my favorite tips and tricks about long-term booking management and how to sort of streamline our processes when it comes to managing those bookings that stay for that little bit longer. For those who don't know me, my name is Sophie. I'm from the training and support team here in Australia. I also have my colleague with me, Megan. She's from our US training and support team, and she will be scribing today's webinar. So any questions that you might have throughout today's webinar, feel free to pop them into the chat, and Megan will do her best to get back to all of you on those ones there. We will record today's webinar as well. So if you happen to have a staff member that missed today's session, or you want to revisit it at any stage, or any other webinars that we've done previously, jump onto our YouTube page. We'll upload that there shortly after we complete this webinar today. So let's go ahead and we'll get straight into it. So today, like all sessions, I like to point out my favorite thing about the Newbook system, and that is our knowledge base. So for those who don't know, our knowledge base is a little pop-out window up to the top right here, and this brings up relevant articles to the page that you're currently on. Today, we're going to be looking at repeat billing and that sort of thing. For example, if you start typing in repeat, you'll be able to find different articles on repeat charges, how to add them, and you've also got a fantastic video tutorial there as well if you want to dive a little bit deeper. We've also got our Newbook YouTube page. They're all free videos. You have complete access to these videos through our Newbook YouTube page. And we've got some great playlists for you here as well. So again, if you want to dive a little bit deeper into the system, definitely jump into this Newbook YouTube page where we've got different playlists, such as booking management, rate and revenue management, and we've even got our webinar series sitting in here as well. Moving on back, I'm going to start today's webinar with a couple of different ways that you can set up your long-term bookings. The first way is via a repeat charge. So the first thing I'm going to do, if I have a brand new booking, I'm going to go to the Add Booking screen. Once I'm in this screen, I'm going to put in the primary guest information, just like a regular booking. And then I'm going to extend out the departure date. So Ruby Red, she's come to you and she's let you know that she's going to stay for the next year. So again, I'm going to pop in that departure date over to the right-hand side here. I do have a shortcut for booking length. So if they're set a year, you can just put in 365 nights and it will calculate that for you as well. Across to the site, I'm going to drag and drop and use this drop-down menu and select my annual site that is available. I've got annual site number 4. And then coming on down to the booking billing section, this is where I'm going to apply the repeat billing option. Once I select repeat billing, I'm going to select the add repeat billing item. To set up a repeat billing item, we need to attach an inventory item. Again, coming on back to our knowledge base that I showed you earlier, we have some fantastic tutorials and step-by-step guides on how to add an inventory item. So if you're looking for more information in regards to that, definitely jump to your knowledge base and take a look. The beauty of adding an inventory item is that when we type in our weekly rent inventory item, it's got all the settings pre-filled for us. So within the inventory item, I would have set settings such as the interval, but also any accounting details such as the amount and what GL account it would be going to as well. So you and your staff don't have to remember each and every time to put in those specific details. Moving on down, I have the generation details options. So again, I've pointed out the interval. We can see it's pulling from the inventory item to generate every 1 week. Your start and stop date will just reflect the departure and arrival date on this particular booking. But if you needed to override that, if you wanted to start this repeat billing a couple of weeks later, you can select no over here for this setting, match booking arrival date, and then you can amend that yourself in here as well. Coming on down, there is a great feature called the pro rata billing start date. This allows you, particularly if you're the type of property that always wants to take your rent for all your annual bookings on a Monday, let's just say. Because this booking is arriving on a Thursday, what we can do is put in the next Monday's date. What the Newbook system will do is it will generate a charge that will be the daily amount between the 22nd of August and the 26th of August, and then it will just roll on as normal after that at a weekly basis. The benefits to this is having all your annual or long-term bookings all taking payments on the same day. So it makes it nice and handy for you to be able to process those bookings. Again, hovering over wherever you see one of those question marks, it gives you a nice handy tooltip so you can see what exactly you need to put into that field if necessary. The next run date, it will be the date in which we need to run that particular charge next. So it does default to that start date there when you are setting up a repeat charge to begin with. Moving on down, we've got the accounting details. So as you can see, we've got the amount over here at $310 a week. Again, from the inventory item, it's put in those essential details such as the sub-client account, the GL account, and the description as well. My favorite thing about setting up repeat billing is that Newbook allows you to automatically generate an invoice, but also automatically send that off to your guests as well. So if we come on down, you've got automatically generate invoice. We're going to mark that as yes. We've also got a setting across to the bottom right here called automatic invoice email template. It is currently on do not automatically send, but if you feel like your guests need that weekly reminder and a nice invoice into their inbox, you can use the drop-down menu and select that particular template in which you want to send off to them as well. As soon as I save that, that has then attached that repeat billing to this particular booking, where you can see the amount that's going to generate per week and a calculated stay cost of how much revenue you'll be earning for this particular stay. Any questions? Feel free to pop them into the chat for Megan to answer for you. So I'm going to go ahead and save this booking. I'm happy with that. If I come on down, I can then see on the client account, it has then generated that pro rata amount. So it's generated that a couple of days before it starts generating a week after week. If I jump into that client account here, I can see that that invoice has automatically been made for that guest, where you can tick that invoice and with the selected items, mark it as paid. If Ruby Red has come to you and she's said, hey, I want to pay for a whole month's upfront, what you can do is select the generate repeat billing option. So selecting that, you can either generate one charge for 1 week, 2 charges for 2 weeks, and so on, and then select the generate button down the bottom there. When generating those items together, it will mark them into a nice, neat invoice for you. And again, it is as simple as ticking that invoice and marking it as paid from there as well. Any questions with repeat billing, feel free to pop them into the chat. But that is our first way that we can manage a long-term stay. Again, the best benefits out of this option is that you have the ability to automatically send invoices and automatically notify your guests of those invoices as well. The second way is actually through a rate. So I'm going to jump to my rates page. I have set up a rate called Weekly Annual Sites 2024. Within this rate, if I select the Edit Rate button up the very top here, and jump to my Advanced Rate Options tab up the top as well, I've set a minimum stay duration of 7 nights. So no one's going to be able to book this rate unless they're staying for 7 nights. You might want to have a weekly rate, but you might want to have a minimum stay duration of 28 nights or something like that. Totally up to you. The main thing about this rate is that I've set up a setting down below here called rate invoice controls. It does default to no, but I've turned that on to yes. And what does that do? So what this does is it generates an invoice at a certain interval. So you might have a nightly price generating onto this account, but we want to tidy up that account by generating a nice invoice every certain amount of days. So you've got this invoice interval option. So I've turned this on to yes, and I've marked this for 7 days. So every 7 days, it's then going to gather those charges and put them into one nice, neat invoice. It doesn't automatically send to your guest, but the best benefit to this particular option is that you can allow weekly or even monthly bookings online. So you can offer that on your Newbook online as well. At this stage, repeat billing is something that you would need to set up manually, and you can't offer it online. So this is also a great option if you do want to allow your guests to be able to book themselves in for quite a long stay online. How does this work when we create a booking? Again, I'm going to jump to the add booking screen. And I'm going to add in a guest, Bobby Brown. And he's going to stay for the next 90 nights. So again, booking length across to the right-hand side, I can overwrite that, which makes it nice and easy and calculates that departure date for me. If I select the site, coming on down, I'm going to put him into annual 10. And you'll see now that you've got this option for quoted rates. So I do have my weekly rate. If I select the word weekly, it's going to apply that particular rate all the way down. And I'm going to go ahead and save that booking from there. Once that booking is saved, I'm going to give you an insight to the client account and how this is going to look. Coming on down, jumping into Bobby Brown's client account, I can see that there is a nice, neat invoice for every single week for Bobby Brown, so you can send that off to him and pay them as they go. Any questions with this, please feel free to pop them into the chat. Again, the best benefit out of this way is offering your guests this option online as well. Perfect. So the best thing about both of these options is that they generate an invoice. And when generating an invoice, it essentially allows you to take automatic payments. So instead of having to come into every account every single week and process their card, Newbook can do the work for you and process the card for you as well. So how do we set this up? It's sort of a two-step process. Some prerequisites before setting this up, you'll need to have signed documents on your license and a credit card gateway. That's what you need. So with Bobby Brown, if I jump into his booking, if I jump into his guest profile, I can then see that he has a card on file. Because we like to get approval from our guests that they're happy for payments to be taken off their card automatically, what I would suggest is creating a contact template. And within the contact template, involve an insert field for credit card authorization. So I might just quickly show you that if I jump to my contact templates page. I have one for card, I think. Credit card request. The insert field is this e-signature credit card authorization. So what happens? The guest will then get a document that they will sign. At the bottom of that document as well, they will put in their card details. Once they've put in their card details, the document will say, hey, I'm happy to approve that my weekly rent gets taken off my card. They then sign that document, and then their card then lands on their guest profile like we can see here for Bobby Brown. So you will then get a notification that Bobby Brown has then signed that document and he's happy for you to take money off his card at a weekly or monthly basis whenever you've got your repeat billing set up. If I jump back to view the booking, there's a couple of items that we need to do on that particular client account to essentially trigger that payment to go automatically. Jumping on down, I'm going to go back into the purple line into his booking client account. Again, what triggers the automatic payment is an invoice. Every invoice has a due on date, and that due on date is essential for triggering an automatic payment. If I jump back to view the client account, the first thing I'm going to do as soon as I get that notification letting me know Bobby Brown has signed that document, I'm going to go to account options and then select the edit button. Once I've selected the edit button, across to the left-hand side here, I've got the guest primary authorization. From the drop-down menu, I can then find his card in this list. I can put a primary authorization just for accommodation, but if Bobby Brown's happy for you to take money when he's got utilities such as electricity and gas as well, you can also put a primary authorization on the other sub-client accounts as well. Batch and auto debit is the next setting that we need to look at. So if you wanted to automatically take funds from Bobby's card, you can select the drop-down menu and then select manual and auto. Again, this can be a sub-client account. You can set this on a sub-client account basis, or you can select all of them if your guest is happy for you to continue to take payments on all sorts of bills that they get. Once we've popped that in, we do have an option up the top here called invoice settings. And this is really key as well. Again, I pointed out that that due on date on that invoice. This setting here works with that due on date. So I can see auto debit invoice. I'm going to debit it on the day of the due on date. If you wanted to debit 5 days before the due date, you could, or even 5 days after, you could as well. So totally up to you and up to the guest as well when they want their payment to be taken. But this is a fantastic feature. I know everyone's busy these days, including your guests. They might forget to pay invoices here, there, and everywhere. So this is a really fantastic option that you can offer your guests so they don't need to remember each week or month when they're due to pay their rent. Another fantastic feature, if you don't use the automatic debit, we can send invoice reminders as well. So even if you did automatically take the payment, you might want to send them an invoice reminder as well. But if you didn't, particularly if you do have those guests that, you know, might be a little bit slack in paying you on time, you can send them invoice reminders. So what this does, if I mark that as yes, it will send them an initial invoice reminder, perhaps on the due date if you leave this as 0, or maybe you want to send them a reminder 5 days before the due date, or maybe 5 days after. Totally up to you. And then you've also got the option to resend invoice reminders. So if they still haven't paid their invoice and it's tracking on to be 7 days after the due date, are we going to remind them every 7 days? You can have that option, or maybe even every 10 days. Totally up to you how you want to set these up. But if you do find you're having a lot of guests that maybe don't necessarily pay their rent on time and you need to follow them up, get Newbook to do the work for you. So set it up in here. It makes it super easy to follow up the guests. Once I save that, I can see now that Bobby Brown has a primary authorization sitting in here. As soon as that invoice ticks over to that due on date, depending what setting you've set up in those invoice settings, it will then trigger to take a payment from that card. Any questions with that, feel free to pop them into the chat and Megan will answer them for you as well. The next thing I'm going to show you, as we know, it's really important to keep on top of our long-term guests particularly if you're the type of property that has tourist bookings as well as long-term bookings, and you're also dealing with all sorts of day-to-day issues with the park as well. There's great ways within the Newbook system for you to take a look at an overview, but also in a lot more depth as well, of how your long-term bookings are tracking. The first thing I'm going to show you is actually from your bookings chart. If you jump to your advanced button here, you have a color mode called paid until. If I turn it to paid until, we can see if we come on down to my annuals, I can see who's paid, who's in front, and who is still owing us some money. So this is a great way to just have a really good overview of, where is everyone tracking? And the benefit of having this color mode, and one of my favorite features about the bookings chart, is this saved view option up the top here. I've created one called annuals. So if I select this annuals, I'm just going to edit it for just a minute. I've made it available for all my users. I have also just selected the category called annuals, and I've turned the color mode to paid until. So the benefit of these save views is that you can come into your bookings chart. You might say to yourself, okay, I'm interested to see how my annuals are tracking. I can then go to my saved views and go into my annual view there as well. What that will do is it will simplify your bookings chart so you can have a good overview of your annuals without having to change those settings and update those filters. It's a nice, easy saved view for you to come to each time. If you want to add a new save view yourself, you're simply going to select the save view option and then select add new view. That will then take you to that same screen where you can apply those specific settings as well. Any questions in terms of save views, feel free to pop them into the chat as well. So again, this is a good overview of how your annuals or long-term bookings are tracking. How can we go into a little bit more depth? So we've got reports, and I've saved a couple into my favorites bar here. The first one being your booking repeat billing report. So this report you can run for the day, I would recommend, and then you're just going to select the run report button down below. The benefits of this report is that you can get a more in-depth overview of each booking, what their repeat billing item is that they have generating on their account, what is their next amount, when have they paid up until, and what is their current balance. Most importantly, you've got the status here, so you can see who is overdue and who is ahead as well. A great thing about this page too is you can bulk select or select a few accounts from this screen, and you can send their statements via email. Particularly for those ones that are a little bit overdue, sending them a statement as a little reminder is a great thing to do, and you can do it nice and easily from this booking repeat billing report. Another report is the repeat billing, just plain and simple repeat billing. What your repeat billing does, and it gives you an overview again of those repeat billings that are currently active within the system. This report is really great if you need to update areas in bulk. For example, if I bulk select all my repeat billing, with the selected items, I'm going to select the update button. And then I can update things such as the stop date, the next run date, whether or not I want to create an invoice, which is really great if you might have seen that feature previously when I was setting up a repeat billing item, how I could set up a invoice to automatically generate and automatically send to my guests. If you currently don't have that set up, you can come to this repeat billing page and update them all in bulk so they're all going to get invoices out from now on. So to do that, bulk select, and then you can use this setting, update the emails template to invoices. And instead of do not automatically send, we're going to use that email template to automatically send those invoices for your guests. So again, a great way to update all those repeat billing items in bulk instead of having to come into every single account one by one. Any questions in terms of this repeat billing, feel free to jump and pop your questions into the chat. The next thing as well, because I did show you those two options between repeat billing and rate invoicing, if you've gone down the path of rate invoicing, how can we keep track of those items? I would recommend going to your invoices page. So your invoices page gives you an overview of all the invoices within the system, what status they're sitting at, if they're unpaid or if they're paid in full, or even if they're overdue as well, you would be able to see them from this screen. So again, this is a really good page to go to. Again, you can select the advanced button and look at some advanced settings, maybe if they've been generated before today or something like that. That might be helpful to you. Coming on down, you've also got the great bulk selector. So you can use the tick boxes across to the left-hand side of the screen. You can pay them off. You can send them off to that guest again. You can even send a client account statement from this screen, or also mark them as final notice as well. So some great things that you can do from this invoice screen. So jumping on back to our invoices, and we've had a look at those different reports. How can we better our communication with our long-term guests? So your long-term guests, they might need reminders that, perhaps the bins go out on a Friday, or maybe that you do their meter readings every 3 months, whatever it might be. How can we better our communication with those particular guests? So what I recommend is jumping into the automated contact feature. Your automated contact might already be set up if you've got tourist bookings as well. You might have your booking confirmation and welcome letters, that sort of thing. But your automated contact is also a great tool to help communicate with your long-term bookings as well. Up the top here, I've got the Add Automated Contact button. From here, I'm going to create an automated contact as I might do a meter reading reminder. Again, I would need to create a contact template. So if you did need more assistance with contact templates, again, our knowledge base is the best place to start. But you could create a template that just says, hi, just as a reminder, we'll be coming around and collecting your meter reads this week or something like that. With contact templates, they can either be an email or an SMS if you've got that on your license as well. Coming on down, you've got your sending details. So with long-term bookings, I would suggest popping it on send on repeating schedule. If it was a reminder for your guests that every Friday the bins need to go out, you can select the Friday option and it will then trigger either an email or an SMS to go to them, reminding them of that issue. The next thing you could do, and in regards to our meter reading reminder, I'm going to flick that over to repeat interval. So I take my meter readings every 3 months. I'm going to flick that over to 3 and change that over to months. And I'm also going to update which time I want to send that to. I'm going to start my meter readings reminder from today. And I'm going to repeat that until, the end of time if you really wanted to, or I'm just going to do it for the next few years. Some key filters that you'll need to put in to trigger to your annual guests or your long-term guests is, most importantly, booking status. If you wanted this to trigger to your in-house long-term guests, we need to make sure we only include the booking status of arrived. Once that's been done, you can also trigger this email only to go to people that are staying within the category of annuals. If you don't have your annuals spread out, it's set in one category and they're spread out amongst the park, you can also add a filter called booking site. if you need to look at specific sites rather than a category as a whole. So again, a great way to communicate within the system to help trigger off emails or trigger off SMS automatically for you. Again, it saves you having to come on in and send them in bulk or even one by one, but this is a great way to get those reminders out and better your guest communication as well. Any questions about automated contact, feel free to pop them into the chat and Megan will continue to answer them for you as well. So with automated contacts, we're on the topic of meter readings. With your long-term bookings, they're most likely going to have different utilities such as electricity, gas, and water. Again, we've got some fantastic video tutorials and step-by-step guides within our knowledge base when it comes to setting up meter readings. But the main area that you're going to go to is our meter reading sheet. So let's jump straight to there. Our meter reading sheet is a great place to start to process your meter reads. As you can see, I've got today's date sitting in here. But if you needed to, let's just say you might have taken the reads a couple of weeks ago, you've been very busy and you haven't actually happened to put the reads in, you can select the date from the chart. Maybe we took them last week and then reload the list. The other couple of options here, and I've defaulted these options to always be on, is generate invoices and email invoices as well. So similar to our repeat billing, we can set up our meter readings so that our guests can automatically get an invoice generated on their account, and we can also automatically send that off to them as well. So I've defaulted these two settings, generate invoices and email invoices, to yes. In order to do that, it is as simple as going to your options cog and then selecting default and required fields. I can configure it just for my own preference by selecting you up the top here, or you can update it for every single person in your property by selecting your property name up the top as well. Coming on down, you have the generate invoices option. I've unticked the system default and I've popped that in as invoices. Same thing with email invoices as well. I've unticked the system default and I've selected invoice attached here too. I'm going to go ahead and save that configuration. So every single time I jump into my meter reading sheet, I know I'm going to automatically generate an invoice there. Coming on down, I've already taken the reads, and the good thing about the Newbook system, as soon as you put in the reads, it then saves it for that particular date. So if you happen to leave work early, or if you happen to pop in your reads the day before, it will still be here for you to process the following day. So I've got all my reads in here. I've got my difference and the amount preview. All I need to do now is select the process accounts button. Once I process those accounts, I've then got this success message letting me know that I've sent an email off and I've created 3 separate meter readings charges. And then I've got my invoices here for each account if I needed to print them off as well. Jumping on back to the meter reading sheet, I can see all my meter readings have turned purple, letting me know that their accounts have been billed. Now, a question that I get a lot being on the back end of the support line is what happens if I've accidentally processed an account and I popped in the wrong read? In order to do that, it is as simple as opening up the charge that has been processed and voiding that charge. So I might have put in the incorrect read for this particular date. I'm going to open up this charge and I'm going to edit the charge up the very top here. As soon as I've edited the charge, I have the voided option here where I'm going to mark that as yes. I can then void without a note if I needed to, and then save. As soon as I've done that, when I jump back to my meter reading sheet and refresh this page, I can then see that I have the ability to readjust my value for this particular site. As you can see here, you've got that account preview, and it will not lose what you've last put in as well, which is super handy. So then you can just override that in there as well. Again, it gives you the difference, then gives you the preview, and then it is as simple as processing the accounts again. Any questions when it comes to reader reading, please feel free to pop them into the chat. Megan will be more than happy to answer them for you as well. Let's jump on down. One of the final things I want to touch on is how can we manage when we want to increase the price of our either weekly or monthly rent. We can do this through what we call a scheduled price increase. So scheduled price increases are really great if you've gone, okay, as of the 1st of January next year, I want our monthly rent to be a little bit higher than what it was last year. So instead of having to come on in and adjust every single account, you can actually adjust the inventory item and add a scheduled price increase onto there. So I'm going to jump into our inventory items page. Once we do that, I'm going to type in rent to find my monthly rent inventory item. I can see currently it is at $1,200 a month. And all I need to do now is select the edit inventory item button up the very top here. Once I select edit, I've got my price in here and I'm going to select this scheduled price increase option. I'm going to select add scheduled price increase. And then from there, I need to select a date. So as we said earlier, as of the 1st of January, 2025, we're going to set a new fixed amount. So I might set a new fixed amount at, $1,250 instead. And then what will happen the next time that monthly charge generates on whoever has that repeat billing item on their account already, it's going to automatically up the price. So again, you don't have to jump on in and adjust account after account. The Newbook system can do the work for you. With the scheduled price increase, we can see that we've got a new set fixed amount, or you can increase by a fixed amount or decrease, or increase by a percentage or decrease by a percentage as well. So there's a couple of different options in here that you can utilize with your scheduled price increase too. I'm going to go ahead and save them. And that's going to then trigger off to all my monthly rent inventory items that have been generating on their accounts as of the 1st of January moving forward. Any questions with that at all, feel free to pop them into the chat. Megan will be more than happy to answer them for you. One final thing that I wanted to touch on, if we circle back to client accounts, just one final tip for the day, particularly if you've got those really long bookings that have been staying with you at your property for years and years and years on end. This is just a nice handy tip for you to better view their client account. If I jump back to the bookings chart, let's jump into George Green, for example. I'm going to click on his client account balance to jump straight in here. So George has stayed with us for quite some time. One default setting that you might like to adjust on a client account, if I come right down to the very bottom, you have the display options here. I'm going to select advanced. There is an option to reverse the display order. If I mark this as yes and reload the page, I can see that instead of his balance being right at the top, it then switches to up the top here. So it then reverses the display order. So instead of having to scroll and scroll and scroll through years of charges, you can have their balance right up the very top there as well. Now to default that setting onto yes, you're going to jump to your account options and select the default and required field, similar to what we saw before on our meter reading sheet. Once we select that, again, you can configure for just yourself or everyone there at Newbook Holiday Resort, and you have the option to reverse the display. So unticking the system default, marking that as yes, and saving that configuration will ensure that every time your balance is going to be up the very top of the screen, rather than having to scroll down the bottom and see it from the bottom right of the screen as well. Any questions in terms of that, feel free to pop them into the chat. That's all we've got time for today. And thank you so much again for joining me on today's webinar. I hope you've learned a couple of tips and tricks along the way. Any questions, feel free. I'm getting some thumbs up. That's good. Any questions, just feel free to pop them into the chat. But I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you.